Sometime in Q3, Bitcoin usually sets a pretty aggressive low before getting a massive bounce into a new all-time high. In today's video, we'll be talking about this opportunity. We'll also be going over the recent Bitcoin price action and talking about how this slow Bitcoin grind seems to be tailoring off. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Let's jump right into the video. So first things first, let's jump right into Bitcoin. We can see that on the daily time frame, this is a pretty indecisive candle. And the reason why this is very important is because we are below this previous wick, which I've been targeting for a very long time now. However, we are also still above the important level around 106.2K. A reminder of this level, we never had previous daily closes above that level when we set that inauguration high. And then when we got the closes at that level, that is when Bitcoin set a new all-time high. So right now, being above this level is indeed positive for Bitcoin if we are to see further momentum to the upside. However, this daily candle is telling us something a little bit different. And what I want to show you here is if we take a look at the volume profile of this range and we grab it from here, we can see that Bitcoin is currently getting rejected at the valley area high. We can see that right now we've had a couple of wicks to this level, which is the top of this volume range, and it does look like we could be rolling over. The reason I'm presenting the information like this is because, yes, I am still indeed in a Bitcoin short. Now, an update on that position, I do want to talk about how if we are to crawl higher, it's likely that we would at least go ahead and get rejected right here, which is right around $109,000. But the reason why I entered this short in the first place is because we were at a key confluence level. And as I mentioned in yesterday's video, I kept on adding to my position. So what I'm looking for here for proper downside for Bitcoin within this range would be a break below 106.2K, and then I would go ahead and be targeting right around this area, which is below $104,000. Yes, I do think that Bitcoin can dip that much. Now, if you're a long-term investor, you might say that's not that big of a dip, but of course, if you're using leverage, this movement of several thousands of dollars can make a lot of money. Now, I'm not going and encouraging you to short this because we already entered the position within my free Telegram community. By the way, that is the first link in my description down below if you'd like to join and see some of my trade calls. But ultimately, what I am saying is that if we are to crawl up, we would likely get rejected at the top of this range. And if we are to just roll over here, what I would want to see is falling below 106.2K, and that level keeps on acting as resistance. So this is the update on the Bitcoin price action. I mean, it still looks like we're continuing to form this range back and forth between the highs and lows, and I do think that this has a high likelihood of continuing. Now, in my intro, I talked about the opportunity that could be found in Q3. Let's go over it. So we know that Bitcoin tends to chop around in the summer. This is not a surprise, and I've been talking about this on the channel at length. However, what we also realized is that if we really zoom out here, Bitcoin tends to have aggressive moves to the downside one final time within Q3 before exploding to the upside. And what I mean by this is if we take a look at last summer, there was an absolutely insane wick to the downside on the weekly time frame for Bitcoin. And you can see that I marked it here on the chart. This was when Bitcoin dropped all the way down to $49,000 after consolidating for several months within this range. Now that marked the low, and Bitcoin went ahead and put in a brand new aggressive all-time high after breaking out of this range. So this is kind of what I'm eyeing for this upcoming summer. I think that we can go ahead and chop around, but at some point in time, as we get closer to August, September time period, I do think that we will have one aggressive wick to the downside, which will fuel Bitcoin's next leg higher. It's all a matter of liquidity, but ultimately what I think is the chop could happen, and then we go ahead and have a big break below where everyone is freaking out thinking that the cycle is over. However, it'll be somewhere below $90,000 just as an example, and then Bitcoin will go ahead and pump much, much higher, likely putting in a new all-time high towards the end of the year if we're following the 4-year cycle theory. And that would put us all the way up in this region. Now, I've said my bull market top for Bitcoin has been between $120,000 to $150,000. I still stand firm on that. I can't give you an exact number because the reality is no one has a crystal ball. No one really knows. But I do think that this could be a scenario. I mean, we've seen it before even outside of last summer. If I scroll down here, I marked some other levels. We can see here that even back in 2023, in September, we had a pretty big move to the downside, and that downside wick coincided with the next big move much higher for Bitcoin. And then if we go back to the previous cycle, you can see that the same kind of situation occurred. Bitcoin had a pretty big wick here in the summer. This was September, and then we went ahead and had a massive pump, which set Bitcoin's brand new all-time high slightly above the previous high. So I think that this is likely for this summer. Now, if this were to play out to perfection, I would be very surprised. Let's be real. The market always does have some ways to shake us out. And so maybe it won't happen exactly as I'm discussing, but I do think that if we are to see a new aggressive low for Bitcoin before it goes ahead and moves higher, it would likely be around August, September, fueling us to much higher valuations. Until then, the summer chop thesis is still my base case. Now we're starting to see more longs pile into the market. What I mean by this, if you've been watching my previous videos, is that there were way more shorts in the market, nearly 8 times more cumulative short liquidation leverage. So if we take a look at the liquidity map, we can see here that this Bitcoin exchange liquidation map tells us there is around $8.7 billion worth of cumulative long liquidation leverage on this left side. And on the right side, there's around $8.53 billion worth of cumulative short liquidation leverage. So we can finally see that the longs have overtaken the shorts. Now this is of course very, very close, and so it isn't clear where Bitcoin could be headed based solely on this chart. You do know that in the medium term, when I look at this chart, it does usually tell us where Bitcoin is headed. When there were way more shorts in the market, that is exactly why I told you that we should be longing the low around $98,000. And of course, here we are today, Bitcoin is sitting just below $108,000. So let's see how this plays out. It won't be as obvious looking at this chart, but as I shared earlier in the video, I still think that there's a high likelihood that at this valley area high, Bitcoin continues to get rejected. Now we could also have another wick popping up here, testing it one more time, and then potentially coming lower. Or if we go back to the range and I zoom in and I remove my ugly drawings, we can see that there is a chance here on the daily time frame that we go ahead and trickle on higher, potentially getting rejected at the top of this level if the valley area high from the previous chart doesn't hold as resistance. So as Bitcoin continues to trickle up, I am starting to see that more and more people are going long. And in my opinion, I still think there's a strong case that we will go ahead and roll over. Whether that's now or whether we trickle on up, grab some liquidity to the upside, and then come back lower near the bottom of this range. Now this process can of course take several weeks, but you know my take profits within my signals community. That again is the first link in my description down below. I will make sure to keep you updated on there in real time. Now the next thing I wanted to show you, looking at the altcoin market, we can see that we're slowly bleeding lower and lower and lower against Bitcoin. And so it is highly likely that we find our way back to the bottom of this range at some point as Bitcoin continues to outperform altcoins. Whether Bitcoin goes up or down, this is indeed the case. Altcoins will continue to suffer against Bitcoin, as I have been saying on the channel for quite some time. And taking a look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, we can see that we are very, very close to the level that I've been outlining for months now. And I do think that what's going to happen is we'll find our way into this range, chop around, and there is a chance that Bitcoin dominance can find its way all the way up to around 70%, and I'll make sure to update you on that if we make our way there. The reason why I want to show you this altcoin chart is because if Bitcoin were to have that massive low sometime around August or September, and altcoins have already trickled down to the bottom of this range, it would ultimately be a very good opportunity to accumulate altcoins. And that's exactly when I plan on timing my altcoin buys. So if you want to know exactly when I'm buying altcoins, you have to make sure that you're subscribed to my Telegram community. That is the first link in my description down below. And of course, you also have the YouTube channel where I'm posting daily updates. You'll likely get a glimpse of which altcoins I'm looking at on the channel as well. But for now, still very heavy into Bitcoin, and I also have my trading portfolio. So despite the fact that there's starting to be more longs in the market than shorts, there is still liquidity on both sides. And so as Bitcoin either trickles on up, it's likely that a lot of people start going aggressively long, anticipating a new all-time high. But if Bitcoin starts trickling on down, that is when people go max short and we get a nasty wick to the upside, liquidating those shorts before actually making that move down. Ultimately though, if you're not a trader, there's nothing to be stressed about as long as your portfolio is Bitcoin heavy. I still think that it's going to be the same case this summer. Chop, 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 and that's it until we have that final big breakout at the end of the summer. And just like last year, we will continue to form this very bullish flag which takes a while to play out, and then we get the massive move out of it. And if you're looking to trade crypto, you have the second link in my description down below, which brings you directly to Bluffin. This is a fantastic promotion for you. You can earn thousands of dollars for trading as you normally would. Again, that is the second link in my description down below. We also have the option for Phoenix if you'd like to use this exchange, and you can earn up to $650 in rewards for signing up and trading as you normally would. And that sums up today's video. Not much has changed. Bitcoin just slowly continues to grind up, but it does seem like we're starting to lose our momentum. In today's video, we also talked about the potential opportunity that we could find in the market around the August-September low if we get that kind of low, specifically in accumulating altcoins. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.